Hello, everyone. My name is Chris, and I'm going to be taking us through this question of what does online learning look like at MST. I just want to let you know I'm the director for online learning at Melbourne School of Theology, and also Jillian Asquith, who's our lecturer in Greek and New Testament studies. She's going to be also accompanying us for this presentation. If you have questions, then please put them into the question box at the bottom, not the chat. And so that way we can sort of sort through it so we can know what you're after. And please feel free to do that at any time. And also, obviously, Jillian or some of the other moderators, please feel free to interrupt me in case there's a burning question about this subject as I'm talking about it. So my name is Chris, and I'm a native of California. I live and work and breathe here in Australia, and I've been here for 10 years now. So I guess you can call me, that qualifies me as an Aussie American. But I'm really pumped about just MST online. I really enjoy online teaching. I've done it for years. And I want to talk about some of the things that we value in our community. Not just about online learning, but flexible learning in general, because flexible learning is becoming quite the thing. And in other words, it's becoming quite the technical word that sort of embraces online learning and all other kinds of or versions of education. So without further ado, let's go ahead and launch into this. And please just remember your questions need to go in the question box. All right. So first of all, let's look at this is just a roadmap. So the student's journey, we're going to talk about what it's like to be a student for the very first time when you're going to uni and how we want to be different from that. We're going to talk a little bit about what we believe about learning in general, like how learning takes place. We're going to talk a little bit about what makes MST different, and so how we're unique in our approach, and instructional modalities, in other words, the ways that content and class is delivered online, and then also what an online class looked like. I'm just going to walk you through kind of a little bit of what it feels like or looks like to take an online class with us. So first of all, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9, "For though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jew I've become as a Jew, to those under the law, I become as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those who are under the law. To those outside the law, I become as one outside the law, not being made outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. To the weak, I become weak, that I may win the weak. I've become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may win them in its blessings." So I think it's very clear from Paul's epistle to the Corinthians, this first one, that teaching and Christian ministry in general is a very flexible enterprise. And that's deeply felt and very built into our DNA at MST. So in other words, we are a missional community. We're an academic community, but we're also a missional community. And as a community, a Christian learning community, we really understand mission. So online learning is just another branch of the way that we do mission in our Christian learning community. And saying that, we understand that in order to reach people, in order to meet people where they're at, that we need to be able to deliver content, to approach students and get to know our students. And so that's really the goal, is in order for our students to learn, we need to get to know them. So I want to talk about a student's journey. The very first day that somebody shows up for a university class, most often I have this experience of walking into a big lecture theater, like a big lecture hall, and all the table desks are sort of turned upside down on top of each other. And you just look across the room and it's totally vacant. And you're like, isn't this the beginning of class? Because that's what your schedule says. And it's like, where are all the people? And so you go to the very front of the room, all the way down in the center where the lecturer, would stand, and there's just a big empty stack of papers there. And that stack of papers, you look at it and you're like, oh, this is the unit guide. So you pick it up, and it's got, assessment number 1, assessment number 2, assessment number 3. Now go I wash my hands of you, go and, do the best you can with your life. And sadly, like, that is how most people experience university. And we want MST students to have a different feel for when they come into our community. And so we understand that online students, knowing that studying online is difficult, it has unique challenges. We understand that online students really fear abandonment, that they're concerned about just being left behind or being an unknown, or the word I constantly hear Australian students use is, I'm just a number. And so at MST, our goal is to disciple you and to get to know you. And in order to do that, we have to, in other words, in order to educate you well or to equip you well for gospel service ministry, we need to meet you where you're at. And so that's what I want to say about what we really value is we value meeting students where they're at. Now, some schools think about students coming into their community and they say, oh yeah, we really value students. And what they mean by that is that we just value students, the part of a student's life that interfaces with mine. That is the part of a student's life that's available to get in a car, to drive to our campus, and to meet with us in the classroom. But in MST, because our goal is to disciple students, to equip you for mission and ministry, that means that we value the other parts of your life as well. So we value the fact that you have a life, that you have work, that you may have a spouse, that you may have children, and your relationships, your church community. We value that about your life as well. And so we understand that learning doesn't always mean displacement, that learning actually is meant to be integrative, it's meant to be holistic, it's meant to equip you so that you can grow as a person where you're at. So how do people learn? I want to talk about this a little bit. We use a phrase pretty commonly as like, I learned my lesson. And that just indicates that people often learn by experience. And then sometimes we'll say that people learn by doing. Some people do learn by doing, and so they need to have sort of constructive projects that are set up for them to, break through a wall, to accomplish something so they can see that they've really learned something and understand that as feedback. And then people learn by guidance. Sometimes people need to just be guided along the way so that they can know they can know the content that they're learning is correct at each single step. And that's really important. Sometimes the content of what people are learning requires them to have their hands held. But the bottom line is, for us as educators, is that we can't really educate you unless we get to know you. And we recognize that. And so for us, we do what we can. We have a variety of lecturers who teach a huge variety of subjects. But our DNA, our deep commitment, and what we value is to get to know you as a student so that we can understand better how to do a better job of equipping you. And so people learn in a variety of ways. That's axiomatic. No two snowflakes are the same. Everybody's different. So somebody was saying to Picasso one time that he ought to make pictures of things the way that they are, objective pictures. And he mumbled, he wasn't quite sure what that would mean. So the person who was bullying him produced a photograph of his wife from his wallet and said, there, you see, that's a picture of how she really is. And Picasso looked at it and said, she's rather small, isn't she? And flat. And I love this story because it illustrates just how there's different ways of looking at things. And oftentimes we think of education in terms of something where a teacher is standing here and the student is standing over there. and we're just sort of delivering content to them. But actually, there's different aspects to education, and the most important aspect is learning. And so we want students to learn, and we attempt to see the whole process of equipping you from the standpoint of encouraging learning, improving learning, and maximizing the technology that we use that is in between ourselves and yourselves to help us facilitate that process as best as possible. Now, this picture right here, oftentimes, I'm wondering if anybody knows, I can't with this modality ask anyone if they recognize what this is actually a picture of, but it's actually a picture of a project where a couple of different thinkers took a translated Bible. I don't think it was in English, I think it was a German Bible, but they had all the different citations that are often included in a translation. They just took all of those citations where scripture is citing scripture, and they created a line. And so this right here is a picture of the Bible and all the different ways in which the Bible reads itself. And so if we look at it, we can just see almost this rainbow of pictures, this rainbow of colors of the way in which all the different kinds of literature of the Bible are interacting with each other and are basically citing each other. And I don't want to say improving, but enhancing each other. And so the Bible is this intertextual world, and we're meant to engage with it in all kinds of ways. And so at MST, we recognize this, we recognize the diversity of God's word, and we recognize that God's word is shaped this way in order to meet you where you're at. And C.H. Dodd says in his book on the parables that the parables of Jesus show the stamp of a highly individual mind. So my point here is that Jesus as a man in his human nature went through a significant learning process, and this is a biblical recognition. And so as we seek to equip you, we want to recognize that there are ideals that are set up in Scripture and that are put forward to give us an impression as to how we should be educators. So why should we teach like this, where you've got the professor and they've got all the students in front of them and they're just delivering content from one person to the other, when learning is like this? It's very diverse, it's very concrete, and it depends on the situation. And so instead of being the sage on the stage, we're attempting to meet students where they're at, and I hope this comes across, and engage with you. Now, saying that, we have a variety of lecturers who do online classes in a wide variety of ways, but I just wanted to take a little bit of time to try to effectively communicate how it is that we try to engage with our students and what we value as a community, because this is sort of the core. And then as we branch out from there, I'll try to talk some more about the things that might vary or will stay the same depending on who, or depending on the content or anything like that. So what makes MST different? So MST has a high care ethic, and we greatly value you personalizing your learning. I think I've said that in numerous ways. And we're determined to do what it takes to give students a quality learning experience. And so that's really what we're aiming after, is quality. We seek to create the classroom environment, and saying that this is an online classroom environment, in a way that emphasizes interaction between faculty and students. We're also seeking for you to have meaningful engagement with the community, and the content relationships are key. So the point here is that with online classes, there's going to be different protocols depending on the lecturer, and that's usually because they have priorities of how they instruct depending on the content that they're trying to deliver. And these protocols will vary. So some lecturers will Zoom with students every single week and have like a virtual replication of a face-to-face class in an online environment. And that's called synchronous learning. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we also have other lecturers who are sort of the opposite, where they set up the class students engage with the content, and Zooms are few and far between. Sometimes we have classes that are online that set up groups between students. And so you engage with other students on a project, and then you would provide evidence that you've met as a group and you have something to work together on. And so we do group work in an online format as well. And so the point here is that we don't give up on relationships, knowing that relationships are just, it's really what education is about. But now COVID-19 has hit. And so what I think we've sort of landed on is what I would call emergency remote teaching. And emergency remote teaching is a bit different than traditional online learning. And so Susan, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Grajic of EDUCAUSE distinguishes remote learning from well-considered durable online learning. Remote learning, she says, is quick, ad hoc, low fidelity mitigation strategy. And so some of these, there's education experts who are actually taking a backward glance at what's happened with COVID-19. And they're studying the way that it's affecting us as, and it's affecting students. And I've noticed a difference with my students because more often than not now I get questions like I have one class that doesn't meet very often online, but the first thing that students ask is, when are we meeting? When's our class time that we'll be meeting every week? Because students can tend to assume that online classes just Zoom with the lecturer every single week. But this is something that Susan, whatever her last name is telling us, that there's different kinds of online learning and we need to kind of be prepped for that. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll move into some other topics before we do questions. So hopefully I'll be able to leave some time for questions. That's my goal. So durable online learning looks like a meal at Downton Abbey, where everything is really well thought through. It's very planned. And if you think about these meals, there's multiple courses. They all sort of build on each other. But at the same time, there's a kind of continuity for the palate that goes from the beginning to the end. That's what durable online learning is that our friend Susan is talking about. And what this tends to do is it tends to challenge faculty to try to think through the variety of the kinds of students that someone could have, and then how an educator might equip students as meaningfully as possible, given that variety in the student populace that they've got in an online format. So these classes will have a lot of movement. And let me just see here if I have a question. Oh yeah, if you have a question, by the way, make sure not to put it into chat, but put it into the question box. So anyway, that Downton Abbey. Now, I also want to look at a different situation. For some reason, here we go. This is emergency remote teaching. And so I think of this as different from Downton Abbey. This is like the opposite, where Bilbo gets raided by the dwarves. And this is just a picture of how the teacher feels, because when COVID-19 hit, then all of a sudden, lecturers had to take their classes that were face-to-face and put them in an online format. And so we just ended up Zooming with students all the time. And this, of course, creates problems like Zoom fatigue and other things. But what I want to say here is this is just a picture of, I think, kind of how the teacher feels. And it's really not a planned meal at all. Instead, it's just people come barging in, taking food. And that's how the teacher feels, but it challenges students as well. I'm not saying that students are dwarves, but it challenges students as well to kind of re-envision themselves as different kinds of learners, to maximize the use of technology and to think independently. Let me see here. I've got a question here. If I enroll at MST as an online student, can I still come to on-campus classes post-COVID-19? Of course. I think the answer to that is it depends on your lecturer. We don't tend to prohibit people from coming to face-to-face versions of the class. But this is, so this is what our policy was when we were earlier in Victoria and when we were back and forth, and last year when we were doing some online stuff. our policy was to allow students to do that. We haven't made that concrete so that that's like a forever promise, but that's typically culturally how we do that. But that really depends on your lecturer, because sometimes they may not like the way that that works and may feel a bit disheveled. And so but we do have lecturers that practice that. So I hope that's enough of an answer. Let me see here if I have any others. No, not yet. Okay. Okay. All right, next question. Okay, so anyway, the point of this is that emergency remote teaching is not the same as online learning. And we recognize that. And so we try to have a plan, but between Downton Abbey and Bag End, our online teaching and our methods are going to be somewhere in between, because we're post COVID-19, and so we have different lecturers that take different approaches. But that's why I try to communicate the heart of what we do with our online teaching earlier on in this presentation. Okay. For some reason, this won't move for me. Okay, here we go. All right. So now I want to talk about different instructional modalities at MST. So we have on-campus instruction, and that's the language that we use, and that's the same language that we have all the way across the Australian College of Theology. So there's instruction in a physical classroom, and then those classes will meet what's called synchronously at particular set times. And then of course, there's always an online component to that, so that's where the student would get resources from. And that's always the case with on-campus over here on the left. To move it a bit to the right with online, what we mean by that is that it doesn't meet in a physical classroom. So a class could be online and be, it could be meeting regularly at synchronous times, or it can meet very irregularly and haphazardly, or it may not meet at all because it may not be necessary depending on the content. But you have all the instruction happening in a virtual environment. And then the LMS, which is the Learning Management System, or Moodle, excuse me, it will contain all the different bits that the student will need to engage with the content. Now we also have the terms blended, and we also have intensives. And if you look at the chart here, blended learning and intensives are basically going to be the same in terms of the chart. But of course, an intensive will meet at an intensive time, and then it doesn't meet face-to-face at any other time. But there's blended learning classes that may meet once a month, or it doesn't really matter. The instruction in the virtual environment, there will be something there, but that could just be the LMS content that's provided for the student. But regardless, the times that people meet face-to-face, they will vary with blended learning and intensives. I hope that makes sense. Now, what we're going to do is, hope I haven't gone through this too quickly or too slowly, but we're just going to look at a picture of what an online class will sort of look like. And again, this depends on the lecturer, but this is sort of the structure that we use at MST. So this is a class that I teach called The Doctrine of God and the Work of Christ. And what it has in the beginning is a bit of a note for the student. For some reason, I can't find mine. Okay. It has a bit of a note for the student in the beginning, and it just tells us what the content of the class is. And then if we move down, there's a welcome video. There's a tool there for just giving announcements to students. And then what happens is right here, you have what's called the unit guide, which should tell you everything you need to know, but we'll look into that in a minute here. And then we have basically the different modules here that pop up here, and then further down below, we have this module here. And then we go down here, and that's the very end, and it's got readings, video, and it's got a health check, and that just demonstrates that we're checking up on you, as well as anything else that you might need in terms of support for that week. So they're broken up in terms of modules. And when you go into a module, this is the unit guide. And so as you can see here at the top, it's got, my name, the lecturer, my email, how you contact me. It indicates, when I'm available in my office, so that if you want to email me or have a chat with me, this is the time when I'm committing to be available to you. Regular office hours. It's got, a statement about the unit. And of course, down here, I've got, the online book version for the text that we're using in this particular class. Another page in the unit guide, it just tells you the breakdown of the different assessments. So it tells you what you're doing and what that's worth. It's got the essay topics. And then of course, it's got a schedule for you to have a look at, as well as links up here for anything that you might need, resources for understanding policies or how to access the library's online resources and those kinds of things. So I'm going to sum this up now and say that there are a lot of opportunities at MST online, and we're a community of pastors and teachers who care about you, and we have among the widest variety of courses available in the Australian College of Theology. So most any ACT course you can take with us. I can't say every because I'm almost sure that's not true. But we focus on quality learning, and our aim is to meet students where they're at. So now if you have questions, it would be good for you to write a question up in the Q&A box, because I am finished with this, but I'm curious about anything people might want to know. And so just let me know here, and I'll just take a minute and see if anybody has any others to ask. Okay. And there's another one here in the chat. All right, listen, thank you very much. And our prayer is that God will, we got one question here. Let me put this on. How do you build community for an online class? That's a great question. So what I'm going to do, I'll just answer this live. And so one of the things that I try to do, we've started this discussion this last semester with some online faculty training. But the goal, I think, for building community for an online class is not just to Zoom with students. One of the things that I typically do in my classes is I invite students to share prayer requests with me. And so I will pray for those students and then send them questions about how they're doing, just checking up on them pastorally. And that's because I think of online teaching as an opportunity to meaningfully enter into the lives of others who I'm connected with in that online environment. So saying that, that's one way to build online community. I've heard other lecturers say other things, but this is sort of ongoing discussion amongst our faculty that isn't complete yet, and we don't use a kind of homogeneous strategy for that. I'm going to distance that one is done. Thank you for the talk. How can I talk to someone in person about study questions? So what I think you need to do is probably book an appointment with, and I think you can do that through the website for Open Week. So I would suggest you do that. The other thing is they'll set you up with an interview or something like that. But yeah, I would suggest you do that. Let's see here. Is every course available online? I think that is a hypothetical yes. None of them are all ready to go online. So technically the answer is no. But we have many, many courses available online. But you know what? I think I'm going to defer this to Jillian. Jillian, do you have a better answer for that?
Yeah, it depends what you mean by course.
I'm not sure I can hear you.
A course for us is, for example, the Graduate Diploma of Divinity, a Bachelor of Theology, and the entire program is available online. If you're talking about individual subjects or units, then all of the prerequisites that are required for a particular course are available online. So you can complete your MDiv or your BTH or your BMin completely online. There may be some electives that at this point are not available, but as Chris said, we're working really hard to roll out everything online. So I would say that if you enrolled now, by the time you come to want to do a particular elective, it is most likely going to be available online.
All right. So listen, it doesn't look like there are any other questions coming this way. And so we really just want to thank you. And please go with God's blessings. And I hope you enjoy this week as you inquire about MST.